300,000 years ago, humans change. Language, cities, civilization, almost overnight. Evolution didn't do that. Something else did. The oldest tablets on Earth say we were created, not by nature, not by God, but by beings from the sky, built to mine gold, programmed to obey. Then, they tried to wipe us out. This story appears everywhere. Sumerian tablets, Egyptian temple, Indian myths, even the Bible. And the name? The Anunnaki. Iraq, 1849. The sun beats down on endless dunes, where dust and time have buried the remains of empires. A British diplomat turned amateur archaeologist, Austin Henry Layard, treks across the Mesopotamian plains, driven by rumors older than any map. Whispers of a lost world, of a civilization that should have not have existed. Guided by Bedouin locals and an inexplicable obsession, Layard reaches Koyunjik, an unassuming mount that masks the ruin of Nineveh, capital of ancient Assyria. To the untrained eye, it's just a hill. To Layard, it feels like a heartbeat buried in the sand. His crew begins excavation. They expect relics, a few shattered bowls, but as they dig deeper, something shifts. Columns appear, then walls, and then an entrance. A passage carved into stone, flanked by winged creatures. It leads underground. Beneath the sand lies a palace. Its walls collapse, its archives untouched. In its heart, they find rooms packed with over 20,000 clay tablets, carefully stored like a library. Symbols etched in cuneiform, the oldest writing ever discovered. Layard doesn't understand what is found, not yet, but something about the structure, the precision, the scale, tells him this wasn't myth, this was memory. He thought he was unearthing a city. Instead, he found a vault, a time capsule, left behind by minds we still don't understand.
The clay composition consistent with Mesopotamian origin. Carbon traces on surface indicate sealed storage conditions. Integrity 93%.
At first, historians believed they found stories, myths, hymns, prayers. But the deeper they translated, the more unsettling it becomes. These weren't legends. These were records, logs, reports, and they told a story that shouldn't have been possible. The tablets speak of beings from the sky, descending in fire and smoke, welding tools, wearing armor, ruling from above. And they weren't described as spirits, but as rulers. They had names: Anu, Enlil, Enki. They were called the Anunnaki. Layard had no idea what he was stepping into, neither did the scholars. But name after name matched across tablets, from Nineveh, Eridu, different cities, same entities, same sequence of events.
Earliest references confirmed across 3 sites: Eridu, Uruk, Lagash. Estimated original source, approximately 2,900 BCE. Narrative similarity threshold, 88%.
See, the stories weren't poetic, they were operational. Some listed procedures, construction blueprints, even star charts. And the Anunnaki weren't just gods, they were engineers. If these were just stories, why are there mathematical formulas buried between the lines? Something about their mission brought them here. Around 4000 BCE, the Sumerians appear seemingly out of nowhere. With no slow evolution or prehistory, just fully formed cities, walled, irrigated and mapped. They had tax systems, trade, contracts written in stone, even cosmology, charting stars invisible to the naked eye. How? When asked where they learned these things, the Sumerians were clear. They didn't. They said it was given to them by the Anunnaki. The tablets offered an answer. The Anunnaki didn't come to rule, they came to survive, from a world called Nibiru, a distant planet with a long elliptical orbit. Their atmosphere was dying. Their solution was gold, used to reflect sunlight and stabilize their skies. Modern science confirms it. Gold can block radiation. NASA even uses it on satellites and visors. But the Sumerians knew this 6,000 years ago.
Gold nanotechnology for radiation reflection. Modern use confirmed. Sumerian reference accuracy anomalous. Independent discovery probability less than 1.8%.
You still think this is just myth? They landed on Earth, rich in resources, particularly in southern Africa. But mining was grueling, dangerous, so they created a labor force. The Ejiji, a subclass of the Anunnaki, were sent to dig. For centuries, they worked in the gold mines of Africa until they had enough. The rebellion began quietly, refusal to obey, then fire, sabotage. According to Enuma Elish, they marched on aliens' estate demanding freedom. A mutiny recorded like a military incident report. The level of detail about this story, the depth impresses me, especially with the imagination of that time. With the Anjiji unwilling to work, Enlil prepared for war, but his half-brother, Enki, had another idea. Use the native hominids, splice their DNA with that of the gods, build a biological machine, strong, adaptable, and obedient. So this brings me to another question. What if we are not the apex of evolution? What if we are just a workaround, a solution to a staffing problem? One line repeats across multiple tablets. Mix his blood with clay, let the god and man be bound.
Enuma Elish Tablet 6. Symbolic versus procedural coding analysis complete. Result 91.3% procedural instruction density. DNA hybrid protocol. Cross-specimen ethics undefined. Memory index mismatch. Origin source corrupted.
If this is true, then free will isn't where we started. It's what we're still chasing. Because if this is how we began, what else did they program us not to see? Before he died, Layard wrote one final entry in his journal. I unearthed an empire, but I fear what we've awakened will not go back to sleep. The first prototypes failed. Some were mute, others unstable, but then one lived. They called him Adamu. He was not the first man, he was the first viable hybrid. And in a way, we've been trying to remember that moment ever since. The Anunnaki gave these beings tools, taught them how to speak, to build, to harvest. They even assigned them keepers, gods among men. But it wasn't just about labor, it was about legacy. They began to shape culture, law, even morality.
Multiple early Mesopotamian cities displayed technological anomalies, metallurgy, canal systems, astronomical alignment, predating known origin timelines.
At first it worked. The new workforce multiplied, cities flourished, but the hybrids, humans, began to develop something unexpected: curiosity, autonomy, and emotion. We weren't just tools anymore, we were evolving. Enki was proud. Enlil, on the other hand, was terrified. He believed the experiment had gone too far, that humans would overrun Earth, desecrate the sacred, and one day challenge the gods.
Projected hybrid population, exponential growth curve, risk to Anunnaki dominance, high, recommendation, containment, or elimination.
The decision wasn't just cold, it was calculated. So the council agreed on a reset. Around 10,800 BCE, something unthinkable occurred. The skies dimmed as if morning. Moisture thickened into fog, shrouding continents in a deadly hush. Glaciers, immovable for millennia, began to groan and split, echoing like ancient gods in pain. The oceans rose with terrifying speed, devouring coastlines, uprooting forests and erasing cities. But this wasn't a natural catastrophe, not entirely. This flood was engineered.
Flood sequence detected. Artificial geomechanical triggers confirmed. Accelerated tectonic destabilization initiated via polar orbital oscillation. Glacial liquefaction exceeds natural thresholds. Origin, non-terrestrial. Primary records compromised. Recoverable memory, 12%.
They didn't just hit reset, they aimed to do a clean wipe of the experiment. But within the ranks of the Anunnaki, not all agreed. Enki, who once gifted mankind with thought, couldn't bear to watch his children erase. Defying the command of Enlil, he found a man, Zeus Sudra, and shared a secret not meant to survive. The waters are coming. Build an ark. Save what you can. Was Enki just another god? Or was he the original Prometheus, risking everything to gift us knowledge we were never meant to hold? See, this tale wasn't isolated. Echoes of it reverberate through every cradle of civilization. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Utnapishtim builds a vessel. In Genesis, Noah obeys a divine command. The Popol Vuh, Menu in Hindu text, even the Deucalion in Greek myth, all the same story told in different tongues.
Cross-civilizational myth convergence exceeds 93.4%. Statistical clustering aligns around the Younger Dryas boundary, 10,800 to 9,600 BCE. High-frequency iridium layer anomalies detected suggests simultaneous impact and meltwater pulse events.
They call it myth, but how do isolated cultures, oceans apart, tell the same story of gods, warnings, floods, and survival? The flood wasn't a single act, it was a symphony of destruction. Skybursts lightening the upper atmosphere, tectonic shifts that ripped apart the land, tsunamis cascading inland faster than escape. Scientists now speak of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, that a fragmented comet may have struck Earth's ice caps, accelerating planetary meltdown. But in the midst, it wasn't a rock, it was wrath. In the aftermath, silence, not just of sound, but of memory. Libraries reduced to salt and silt, priests and engineers drowned beside their blueprints. But fragments endured. In stone, in stars, in stories passed by trembling survivors who couldn't forget. No matter how much they were told to, they wanted to bury the story of us. What came after wasn't evolution, it was salvage, a patchwork reboot. Survivors rebuilt in Sumer, Egypt, Peru, and those who helped them wore strange garments, carried impossible tools, and claimed to have come from the stars.
And so the gods withdrew and gave the kingship to man and said, "Remember what was lost, lest it rise again."
But the memories, they linger. In our blood, in our bones, in every myth of a paradise drowned and a sky god betrayed. The flood came. It washed away cities, kings, and entire bloodlines. But it didn't erase everything. Some fragments were built to last. Others were designed to hide. Beneath the sediment of extinction, clues endured, carved into basalt, encoded in myth, and etched across the stars. They didn't just vanish, they encoded their return. And if they knew the flood was coming, what else did they plan for? In the aftermath, civilizations rose seemingly out of nowhere. Sumer, Egypt, Mesoamerica, and Anatolia each claimed their knowledge was a gift from the stars, from the sky beings, from gods who didn't just come down, they ruled. These weren't tribal spirits or imagined deities, they were architects, codifiers, geneticists. In Sumer, you have Enki and Enlil. In Egypt, Osiris and Thoth. In India, the Devas and the Asuras. And in Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent descending from heaven, always bringing knowledge, always leaving symbols behind.
Sumerian king list anomaly. 8 kings before the flood ruled for 241,000 years combined. Post-flood kingship descended from heaven. Cross-reference with dynastic reset events in Egypt and pre-Inca Andes. Time compression suggests metadata distortion or intentional obfuscation.
Imagine surviving the apocalypse, and the first rulers that arise still serve the same gods. And what if those rulers weren't just loyal, but engineered to continue the code? The clues go beyond monuments. They are buried in DNA, hidden in art, repeated in myth after myth like a warning whispered across time. There's a reason ancient kings from pharaohs to Inca priests called themselves sons of gods. Maybe they weren't lying. If a piece of them is still inside us, what does that make us? Look closer at the artwork they left behind. The same motifs carried across oceans, etched into stone, preserved in ceremonial dress. The handbag of the gods, the pine cone, the winged disc. Objects with no practical explanation, yet revered across the globe by cultures who had never met. Or had they? Some believe similar technology was hidden in plain sight, like Egypt's Dendera light. Was it a symbolic art, or an ancient device powered by something far beyond fire? I think this was an evolution. It was installation. And the symbols, they weren't just sacred, they were signatures. I used to think these were just myths, but now I wonder if they were instructions. The Book of Enoch described beings who taught mankind how to write, mine metals, manipulate nature, and were punished for it. Some say it's fiction, others say it's redacted history. If the Anunnaki vanished, what did they leave behind? Not just ruins or myths, but objects, codes, and clues that seem out of sync with everything we know about history. Artifacts that appear centuries or even millennia ahead of their time. Objects so complex they rival modern engineering. And maps carved into stone, charting lands and stars that ancient civilizations supposedly never knew existed. Artifacts that shouldn't exist. Technologies that defy the civilizations they were found in. What if these weren't errors in carbon dating, but breadcrumbs, markers left by a world that rebooted?
Baghdad Battery, Antikythera Mechanism, Saqqara Bird, each retrieved from archaeological strata that predate their logical invention timelines. Contextual displacement anomalies confirmed. Hypothesis, legacy tech seeded post-catastrophe.
Historians call them out-of-place artifacts. But what if they're not out of place at all? What if we are? Maybe the timeline we live in isn't the first, or even the fifth. What if history is recursive? What if, after every collapse, something survives? A message buried between the ruins. Keys to an older, forgotten operating system, left not to change the future, but to reboot the past.
Detected. Recurring glyph sequences spanning over 17 flood myths globally. Cross-reference to binary pattern number F-333 indicates intelligent encoding. Structures located at Göbekli Tepe, Tiwanaku, and Nan Madol show comparable mnemonic functions.
Encoded knowledge hidden in myth. Nova, are you saying these objects weren't lost, but planted?
Correction. They were not planted for discovery. They were planted for memory. Design intention. Cognitive reactivation upon generational maturity.
These aren't tombs. They are not temples. They are time-locked repositories, vaults of knowledge waiting for re-entry protocols. The hall of records beneath the Sphinx, the sunken structures of the Yonaguni and Dwarka, the megaliths of Baalbek and Pumapunku, each aligned to the stars, each inscribed with recurring mathematical patterns, fire ratios, sacred geometry, and astronomical cycles intended to echo across epochs. These aren't random, they are activation sequences.
Schumann resonance deviation logged. Frequency peaks at 7.83 Hz now resonate with structural harmonics at Giza, Angkor Wat, Teotihuacan, and other node sites. Possibility, reactivation protocol underway.
Could it be that the Anunnaki left behind not just stories, but systems? Ancient frameworks of energy, data, and memory encoded in megaliths and myth. Could it be that what we call civilization is just the latest version of a repeating experiment? If that's true, then we're not just uncovering our past, we are triggering its return. If everything we are seeing is connected, maybe the real question isn't who were the Anunnaki, is when are they coming back? If the Anunnaki were real, Why hasn't mainstream history embraced the idea? We are told to believe in linear progress, in evolution, in civilization rising from primitive roots. But ancient aliens, genetic tampering, last epochs of advanced technology, that's the realm of fringe speculation. Or is it? Even I have to step back sometimes and ask how much of this is truth and how much is projection. Zecharia Sitchin's work is compelling, but also controversial. He wasn't a trained Sumeriologist, and many of the claims made by Asian astronaut theorists, well, let's just say they're not widely accepted by academia.
Initiating skeptical data scan. 1. Zecharia Sitchin's credentials. Self-taught, not a linguistic authority. 2. Cylinder seals and tablets. Translations disputed by experts from the University of Chicago and Oxford. 3. OOP arts. Majority either misunderstood or natural anomalies. 4. Flood myths. Explained by cultural memory of regional catastrophes, per mainstream theory. Alien DNA manipulation. No genetic evidence supporting sudden external intervention.
But for every skeptical dismissal, there's an unanswered question. How did ancient builders move multi-ton stones with no cranes to build the pyramids? Why do sacred sites align perfectly with star constellations? Why do Sumerian, Egyptian, Hopi, and Hindu myths echo the same themes? Gods descending from the skies, floods resetting the world, knowledge granted by divine visitors. It's tempting to write it off as coincidence, but every civilization across oceans with no contact between them, all describing the same cataclysm, the same star beings, the same stories of humanity being shaped, guided, and then judged. Could the myth of the Anunnaki be part of something far older? A hidden code embedded across time, meant not just to inform, but to awaken. Not just mythology, but memory, a cosmic breadcrumb trail we were never meant to notice until now. It's easy to dismiss what challenges the status quo, but history isn't always written by the victors. Sometimes it's edited by the survivors. The anomalies we keep finding, maybe they weren't lost, maybe they were hidden, buried beneath the noise of time.
If myths were seeded with encrypted truth, then chronological timelines may be compromised. Suggest re-evaluation of historical assumptions. Proceed with caution.
Maybe we weren't meant to believe it. Maybe the purpose of the Anunnaki myth was never proof, but potential. An idea dangerous enough to survive across millennia. I didn't expect to feel this way, I'll tell you the truth. But diving into this, connecting the dots, chasing the patterns, it's changed something in me. Not just how I see history, but how I see us, you and me. Whether the Anunnaki were real or not almost doesn't matter. What matters is that someone, somewhere, believed we were capable of more. That we were meant to question, to grow, to evolve. And that sticks with me. If you found a code that proved everything you've been told is a lie, would you dare to keep digging? Truth? Fiction? You decide.